Grady Pruitt was 41 years old, smelled faintly of diesel and hay, and had exactly one skill anyone had ever complimented him on. He could fix anything with a socket wrench, a roll of duct tape, and 40 years of stubbornness. He was elbow-deep in a broken combine harvester outside Beulah, North Dakota, when the recruitment drone landed in his cornfield like an oversized dinner plate. Query: Are you Grady Pruitt, agricultural technician, decorated volunteer firefighter, and survivor of 3 tornadoes and 1 very angry bull? Grady wiped grease on his jeans. Depends who's asking. We require a specialist for a hazardous extraction mission. Compensation is substantial. Survival rate is variable. Grady considered this for exactly 4 seconds, about as long as it took to finish his coffee. Sure, beats fixing this combine. The recruiter, a nervous Galactic Consortium liaison named Vex, met Grady at the processing station and slid a data pad across the table with the gravity of a man handing over a death certificate. Mr. Pruitt, I need you to understand the mission parameters before you sign. The target planet, Craxus 9, has a hostile ecosystem rated Class Omega, our highest danger classification, atmospheric acid density, apex predators the size of transport vessels, gravitational anomalies. 3 previous extraction teams of professional, augmented, heavily armed, did not return. Grady scrolled through the file with the enthusiasm of a man reading a cereal box. This is not hyperbole. This is not an exaggeration for effect. People die on this planet regularly, horribly. Sounds like my uncle's property in August. Vex blinked all 4 of his eyelids. I do not understand that reference. You will. Grady signed the form without reading the last page. Vex stared at the signature for a long moment, then sighed in a way that vibrated his entire skull ridge. Don't blame me if you come back in a box, Mr. Pruitt. Wouldn't be the first time something tried. The briefing room aboard the extraction vessel, Titan's Reach, held 4 other operatives, and Grady was, by every visible metric, the least impressive person in it. Kelth Voss stood nearly 9 feet tall, with obsidian-black exoskeletal plating that rippled like oil under the lights. He was the surviving commander of the 2nd Void Legion, a unit wiped out to the last. Soldier defending a colony from a Zarthi incursion except for him. He had killed 43 enemy combatants with his bare claws. After his weapon jammed, his file simply read, "Do not engage unarmed." Dr. Sella Marn was small, pale blue, and covered in faintly bioluminescent veins that pulsed when she calculated. She was a xenobiologist who had personally cataloged 11 previously unknown apex predator species on and survived encounters with all 11. Her left arm was cybernetic, replaced after a minor incident she described, with unsettling calm as the jaw. Threxul 9 was a void-forged combat drone with a semi-organic core, built from the salvaged nervous system of a decorated war hero. He did not blink. He did not sleep. His combat rating was classified above Kelth's, which Kelth resented deeply and would not stop mentioning. Joran Pels, the squad's engineer, had 4 arms and a doctorate in atmospheric hazard mitigation. He had personally designed the pressure suits that let anyone survive Craxus 9's surface for longer than 6 minutes. He'd tested 3 prototypes on himself. He still had all his fingers, which apparently was considered a miracle. Then there was Grady. No exoskeleton, no cybernetics, no classified combat rating, just a flannel shirt, jeans with a coffee stain, and a toolbox he'd insisted on bringing instead of a weapon. "This," Vex announced over the comm, gesturing at Grady like a man presenting a science fair project, "is Specialist Pruitt, human, unaugmented." Kelth's mandibles clicked in what might have been disbelief. "He has no armor plating. He has a Carhartt jacket," Grady offered helpfully. Sella scanned him with her cybernetic eye, frowning at the readout. "His musculature is unremarkable. His reflexes are within standard biological baseline. He has no weapon. Got a wrench." Threxul's optical sensor rotated slowly toward him, processing. Query: What is your combat specialization, Specialist Pruitt? Grady thought about it. "Mostly I fix things that break. And things break a lot where I'm from." The silence that followed suggested nobody on the ship found this reassuring. "The planet's atmosphere," Joran explained, adjusting his suit calibrations, "contains sulfuric microparticles that will strip organic tissue in under 90 seconds. Without proper filtration." Grady nodded slowly. So like a Nebraska hailstorm, but it's the air itself. Sella's antennae twitched. That is not remotely comparable. Storm took the paint clean off my truck once. Air did that to you, you'd be having a real bad day. Kelth stared. You compare planetary scale atmospheric toxicity to weather. Weather's tried to kill me more than most things. Surface temperature fluctuates between -60 and positive. 140 degrees within a single planetary rotation, Yoren continued, voice tightening with each word. That's just Tuesday in the Dakotas, Grady said. 40 below in the morning, heat wave by supper. You learn to layer. Threxul's core processor whirred audibly. Your species tolerates this. Regularly? We complain about it loudly, but yeah. Sella made a note on her data pad, hand trembling slightly. Escalate his biological monitoring priority. The apex predator native to the region, Sella said, pulling up a hologram of something with too many teeth and not enough logic, is called the Vrask. It hunts in coordinated packs, uses infrasound to disorient prey, and has been known to breach military-grade hull plating. Grady squinted at the hologram. That's a coyote pack that learned math. A what? Nothing you gotta worry about. We got a strategy for that back home. Big dog. Loud noise fence. Kelth's plating rattled. The alien equivalent of a shutter. You intend to deter a Vrask pack with a fence? Worked on the Coyotes. The region is also known for flash flooding events, Yoren added, capable of moving boulders the size of this vessel within seconds. With zero warning. Grady actually smiled at that one, the first real reaction he'd given all day. Now that, he said, sounds exactly like the Missouri River in spring. You get a real feel for it after your basement floods twice in 1 decade. Threxul's optical sensor flickered rapidly. A visual glitch none of the crew had seen before. Specialist Pruitt's threat response baseline is not registering as elevated. Recommend further observation. Boy's either the bravest thing I've ever met, Kelth muttered, or he doesn't understand a single word we're saying. Bit of both probably, Grady said cheerfully. One final note, Vex said over the comm, voice noticeably strained. The region is contested territory. A local warlord, designation Krasik the Hollow, controls the extraction zone. His forces have destroyed 6 previous consortium operations. He does not negotiate. The room went quiet. Even Kelth looked grim. Grady scratched his chin. So he's basically the guy at the county fair who thinks he owns the parking lot. He commands an army, Vex said flatly. So does that guy, metaphorically. Nobody laughed. Grady shrugged and went back to checking his toolbox. Craxus 9 looked like a nightmare that had been left out in the sun too long. The sky churned an ugly yellow-green, streaked with corrosive cloud, banks that hissed audibly against the ship's hull as they descended. The ground below was a cracked, glassy expanse of black rock, occasionally split by geysers of superheated steam that shot skyward with no warning at all. The moment the ramp lowered, alarms began screaming. Kelth's exoskeletal plating hissed as protective coating began smoking at the edges. Corrosion rate exceeding projections, he growled, adjusting his suit's output. Sella's cybernetic arm sparked once, twice, then stabilized only after she rerouted power. Atmospheric density is higher than modeled. My readings are lagging. Yoren's suit display flickered red across every panel. Pressure seals compromised at 40%. We need to move quickly. Threxul, the combat drone who did not sleep, did not blink and supposedly did not feel discomfort, made a sound that could only be described as a mechanical wince as his chassis groaned under atmospheric pressure, and Grady Pruitt stepped off the ramp in a suit 2 sizes too big, squinted up at the sickly sky and said, "Huh, reminds me of Ohio in July, real humid." Vex, watching remotely, nearly dropped his data pad. His suit readings show minimal strain. That's not possible, Sella said, running the scan twice. Human biology should not tolerate this atmosphere without severe distress within minutes. Grady crouched down, picked up a chunk of the black glassy rock, turned it over in his hand like he was examining a rock at a garage sale, and tossed it aside. Bit warm. Wouldn't mind a hat, though. Kelth stared at him through a faceplate already fogged with strain condensation. You are unaffected. Wouldn't say unaffected. My glasses keep fogging up. Grady wiped them on his shirt. Otherwise can't complain. Nobody said anything for a long moment. The wind howled. The ground steamed. Somewhere in the distance, something large and unseen let out a shriek that made even Threxul's sensors twitch. Grady adjusted his toolbox strap and looked around like a man surveying a used car lot. "So," he said, "where do we start?" The pack found them by nightfall. 6 Vrask, each the size of a delivery truck, circling the camp with an infrasound growl that rattled teeth and shattered 2 of Yoren's diagnostic tools outright. "Standard protocol," Kael'th barked. Raising his weapon, defensive perimeter, full energy shielding, minimize movement. Grady was already walking toward the tree line with a flashlight and a roll of reflective tape. Specialist Pruitt returned to the perimeter immediately. "Coyotes hate bright light and loud noise," Grady called back, not stopping. "Bet these do too." He strung the reflective tape between 2 rock formations at animal eye height, clipped a battery-powered strobe to a support pole, and cranked a portable air horn he'd apparently packed just in case. The Vrask pack scattered within 90 seconds, shrieking into the dark. Sella stared at her scanner. "That should not have worked." "Works on deer too," Grady said, already walking back to camp. "Y'all want coffee?" Sella's log, day 1. Subject's method contradicts 11 known behavioral deterrence models. Recommend full case study upon return. If we return. The warning came too late. A wall of corrosive floodwater, roaring down the canyon toward their equipment cache, moving fast enough to fold steel like paper. "Evacuate the cache, we cannot save the equipment," Yoren shouted over the din. Grady was already digging. Fast, low, using a folding shovel and 40 years of muscle memory from flood seasons back home. "Dig a trench, angle it off toward the low ground. Redirect the flow before it hits the cache," he shouted. "Same thing my granddad taught me for the spring melt. There is no time to redirect a flood of this magnitude." There was barely. The trench diverted just enough of the flow. The cache survived with minor damage. Kael'th stood at the edge of the new muddy channel, plating still hissing from acid exposure, staring at Grady like he'd just watched a man defuse a bomb with a butter knife. "You have done this before." "Every spring." "Basement's a real problem back home." The scouting path crossed directly through an active geyser field. Dozens of vents, capable of launching superheated steam 100 feet into the air. Timing unpredictable, lethal on contact. "We reroute," Kael'th ordered. A 3-day detour minimum. Grady crouched by the nearest vent, watching the rhythm of steam and silence, counting under his breath. "Nah, these things pulse. Same as the geysers back at Yellowstone. Timing's not random. It's just complicated. Give me a minute." He timed 3 vents, mapped a walking path between the pulses with chalk marks on the rock, and led the entire squad through the field in 11 minutes flat, stepping around eruptions with the unhurried calm of a man crossing a parking lot during light rain. Threxul's internal log flagged an anomaly it could not resolve. Threxul internal log, day 7. Recalculating threat assessment of Specialist Pruitt for the 4th time. Confidence interval degrading. Recommend reclassification from liability to unknown category. No precedent exists. Krizek the Hollow's advanced scouts found them at the ridge. A dozen armed soldiers, heavy plasma weaponry, no interest in negotiation. Kael'th moved to engage, weapon raised, already calculating casualties. Sella pulled her sidearm. Threxul's chassis reconfigured for combat. Grady stepped forward instead. Hands raised, empty, no weapon, no armor. Just a farmer in a jacket walking toward armed soldiers like he was approaching a neighbor's dog. Specialist Pruitt, stand down. He didn't. He walked straight up to the lead soldier, looked him dead in the visor, and said, in the same flat tone he used for broken tractors and angry livestock, "You really don't want to do this today. Trust me." Something in his voice, utterly calm, utterly certain, a man who had never once needed to raise his voice to be obeyed, made the lead soldier hesitate. They didn't attack. Not that day. Kael'th lowered his weapon slowly, staring at Grady's back with an expression his species had no name for. By the 2nd week, something had shifted. Nobody voted on it. Nobody announced it. It simply happened. When the ground shook, the squad looked to Grady before they looked to their scanners. When Kael'th planned the next route, he asked Grady's opinion first on an act that would have been unthinkable 2 weeks earlier. "You are not what our files described," Kael'th admitted one evening, watching Grady patch a suit seal with duct tape and stubbornness. "You are not weak. You are simply calibrated for something we do not have a name for. Farm life, Grady said, not looking up. Ain't glamorous. Teaches you things, though. Sella made a final note in her log that night, one she didn't share with the consortium. Reclassification complete. Specialist Pruitt is not underqualified. He is simply from a planet more dangerous than this one, and nobody warned us. They found the entrance to Krazik's stronghold on day 14, a black fortress built into the cliffside, humming with defensive energy signatures Sella had never seen before. Scans show a bioweapon signature inside, she said, voice tight. Something the consortium has no record of. Something new. Kael'th's plating tightened. Krazik is not simply a warlord. He is protecting something. Threxul's sensors flared red, energy readings exceeding safe thresholds. Recommend immediate withdrawal. Grady looked up at the fortress, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable for the first time since the mission began. Been a long time since something made me curious instead of bored, he said quietly. The fortress gates began to grind open, no warning. No hail, just slow and deliberate, as if something inside had been waiting. A voice low and mechanical rolled out across the ridge in broken galactic standard. The human, it said. Bring me the human. Grady tilted his head slightly, unbothered, already walking forward. Guess I'm popular.